Yeah, hello, Lila. Thank you very much. As you said, my name is Linda Riley. I am the publisher of Diva magazine, which is proudly displaying a poster behind me. For those of you who don't know, Diva is the leading magazine in Europe. You can download it digitally. We print monthly for LGBTQI women. We've been going since 1994. I'm also the founder of Lesbian Visibility Week, which started last year, which has grown from strength to strength, and I'm delighted to be here today. Now, I launched this Saturday program of the conference, and by saying, first of all, I don't have much experience in education. My own experience of education, I left school at 15 with no qualifications. So somehow ended up a publisher, which is quite ironic. But what I want to do is to stress the importance of education, of inclusivity in schools, because one of the reasons I did leave school at 15 is my school experience at the time, and we are talking in the 70s, for those of you who are even born at that period. I had a horrendous experience. I was gay. I was an ethnic minority. Although you can hear me speaking with a very strong London accent, my family are actually Armenian, who changed their name to Riley because they didn't want people to know we're ethnic. In those days, it was very, very harsh, but of course you can't hide it. And basically, I wanted to talk about my experience at school, which I have done. I was homophobically abused, bullied. I was very odd because there was no other Armenians at my school, so it was it didn't feel, nobody talked about anybody being gay. Some of the teachers were lesbian. I met them at a bar later in my life, and they talked about how they couldn't even come out. There were no other Armenians. So to see conferences like this, I want to just talk about how important it is. I have two children, twin girls who are 15. They are at school. They basically, their parents are obviously very proudly out. They can't hide that. 2 years ago, and I'm talking from a UK perspective, everybody, 2 years ago in the UK, there were protests outside schools in Birmingham. So many people were talking about it. It was all over the news. And what really wasn't talked about was how that felt for the children of the LGBTQI community, because although we were talking very, and rightly so, about LGBTQI children who were in schools at that time, we weren't talking about the children of the community who also had to go into school and just endure so much and hear people talking all the time because it was such national news, and knowing that they, came from same-sex parents. So, I've lived through a time of Clause 28 where it was even illegal to talk, to promote sexuality of any kind. And my greatest fear when I see constantly countries across Europe and globally who even have some LGBT rights, those rights being revoked. I'm here to say, we must all fight together, we must struggle together. The struggles that are in Ghana, the struggles that are in Poland, that we should not leave those struggles just to people in those countries. We need to fight together against those struggles, because believe me, it will be the UK next, because I've seen it all happen. I've seen rights revoked, and we could be going that way. It's very, very important to talk about, for me, my experience now. I do go into schools. I'm a patron of a wonderful charity called Diversity Role Models, which goes into schools to educate children about the perils of homophobia and the lifelong effects it has on people. If I'd had a better experience for being out when I was at school, I'm sure that I would have stayed. you know, there's so much good going on in schools, but I realise my children go to school in central London. They are very, very fortunate in the fact that they can openly talk about their parents being gay. I was so proud of them the other day. For the first time ever, they got top marks in religious studies, which I was really shocked at because it's never been on my list of priorities. But they were asked to write about, same-sex parenting, and it was a subject that was close to their heart, and they scored top in their studies. But what I was proud of was the freedom that they had to be, number one, allowed to write about that, and number two, to be so proud to write about it. I have peers that, you know, have children, and they didn't want their children to talk about their parents being gay. So anything that I can do to support education and LGBT education, and to actually amplify the message that when we talk about LGBTQI education in schools, the amount of people that come up to me and say, why are you trying to teach children to be gay? Well, obviously, I know, and most of you will know, that that's not the situation, but you would be surprised because of the title. That is what people think, and we have to get over that myth that is arising. I mean, what I personally would like is I would like, LGBTQI history to be taught at schools, because this is part of our culture, it's part of my children's culture, and it's really important that in education, we're just not learning about one culture, we're learning about the culture of, many other countries, and also the culture of LGBTQI, because people need to know about the history of the LGBTQI, about the Stonewall riots, and because people seem to think we just appear out of nowhere if children aren't taught about it.
Thank you, Linda. That's wonderful. I mean, Sarah Taylor in the audience saying, wonderful, Linda. As you were talking, I put the link to Lesbian Visibility Week, the link to Diva Magazine, and the link to Diversity Role Models. So if people want to find out more about it, and all of the links that are being shared in the chat will be emailed to everyone. I'm really, really grateful. You've been a phenomenal support. Diva Magazine has been a phenomenal support. Diva Community on Clubhouse has been a phenomenal support. You've given me a room every week on Wednesday on Clubhouse to talk about it. I just can't thank you enough. And as you said, it's really important. And it's not about converting people in inverted comma. It's about making sure everybody's seen, because you cannot be what you cannot see. And as you very kindly shared your personal experience, it has really, really negative effects. Would you like to stay, or would you like to be moved to the audience, Linda? What would you like to do?
Could you move me to the audience? Thank you very much. I'll just stay on and listen for a while.
Thank you so much, Linda. Have a fantastic weekend and happy Pride.
Can I just say very quickly, Lila, just to congratulate you and thank you for what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job here, and I'm very, very proud of you. Okay.
Thank you. It's a team effort. I can't do it without you and Cody and Ibtisam and Alice and everybody else, and Norina, who's in the audience, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and the 53 people represented in this conference. Thank you so much. Right. I just realized I forgot to introduce myself, but you can look at the bio in the program. So, Sawadee ka, Cody, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do, please?
Yes, would love to. Share screen. And just confirming. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome, cool. Sawadee Krap, hello from Thailand. So grateful to be in this space with all of you listening, learning, growing. My name is Cody Freeman, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Center. And today I'm going to share about what we've been doing at the Global Center and introduce you to our work. But first, let's start with a warm-up question. So in the chat box, reflecting on your experiences, what does freedom mean to you? So Linda mentioned it really quick too, like freedom can be certain rights, images. No wrong answers, just want to know what freedom means to you.
To be who I am without discrimination, Norina. Marina, feeling safe and comfortable in your own body, the ability to live the way you wish without being impeded legally or by anyone else, Helen. Helen, by the way, thank you so very much. You stated in the chat that as a result of attending the conference yesterday, you now have started a Rainbow Club with your year 8, and you're hoping to launch the whole school once COVID is over. Thank you. Even if one teacher makes a difference in one school, our job is done. Jonathan McBride, hello. Being able to walk down the street with my husband. Yes.
These are fantastic answers. Thank you for all that engage. And please feel free to engage in Q&A or in the chat box throughout, yeah? So just like what we did now, we started with these same conversations in the Global Center and started to create a community of young queer change makers that aims to answer these big questions. We know that LGBTI plus youth face bullying, harassment, discrimination in every context. And they can have really disastrous results, right? Loneliness, isolation, homelessness, and suicide. But we also know that the power of education is not fully utilized to confront this oppression, the transformative power of education. And that currently conceptualizations of education are really about what's in the classroom or among like teacher-student. And so there's that lack of key stakeholder engagement, whether it be in workplaces, in embassies, in government offices, in healthcare facilities. There's so many opportunities to use education to transform all these different institutions and systemically. And just some quick data to back that up from our 2019 needs assessment survey, which we led by listening. So we first listened to 1,000 people, LGBTI plus people in 43 countries. And we found these results of nearly half of those surveyed experienced anxiety in the past month. Only 1 out of 20 people learned about LGBTI plus topics in textbooks in their schools. And nearly half as well go to LGBTI spaces because it provides them a safe space to be themselves. Now, we definitely know this anecdotally, but like the evidence, what just shines through in that. So a quick little intro video about who we are. We work with key stakeholders to create freedom through education for LGBTI plus youth. And I come from a community, so I want to share their voices as well in this video.
Hola.
Hello.
Oi. 大家好，我是 Marshall.
Hello, I'm Cody.
I'm Kai.
Eu sou o Jim.
I'm Penny.
I'm Amanda.
E Jorge.
And we are the Global Center.
The Global Center is an NGO who transforms the world for LGBTI youth through education.
We work through accountability, sustainability, and transformation to end oppression. 我们的足迹遍布巴西、墨西哥、美国、中国、泰国。
The Global Center provides education, advocacy, research, and support for key stakeholders globally.
Nosso approach all ears nos permite liderar a partir da escuta, fazendo balanço entre o impacto local e global.
We facilitate workshops, conduct research, create curriculum, host lectures, and advocate through media for queer voices globally.
Para unirte a nosotros en la construcción de libertades, tú puedes
Visit our website to learn more about our work.
Engage with us on social media and sign up for our mailing list.
Promote the Global Center with your network.
或者为我们提供捐赠。
Esse é o início de centro para a comunidade onde todos são bem-vindos.
Freedom starts with you. It starts with us. It starts now.
我们是 Global Center.
Nós somos o Global Center.
We are the Global Center.
Yay. So our community started with 5 people in these conversations, and over the last year or 2, we've built it, and now we're at a place where we have 22 incredible volunteers in 10 different countries around the world, from Nigeria to Thailand, France to Brazil, United States, Mexico, and engaging in these conversations. We just registered last year, so we're a new space, which means innovation and trying things out, a new organization, workshopping, ideas for impact. And I think a key to our success are our values. So we have 3 values: accountability, sustainability, and transformation. And really embodying, we're having these like big societal conversations around democracy, right, in our society. But what does democracy look like in our organizations? And so it's part of recognizing that everyone is an expert in their own lived realities and in their own contexts. And okay, are we good? Well, can you still just...
Yeah. No, we've got visually impaired people in the room. So if you could describe the slides and stuff, and I'm mindful of the time, and I've got a few questions as well. Thank you, Cody.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, can you still see my slide? Okay, let me try to start sharing again. Okay, can you see now?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. So you have on our website, you have all these people underneath the LGBTI plus Pride umbrella, flag, marching, holding up hands, participating with all these awesome people and joining the community on the streets. With our work, we have 4 programming units. So our education unit creates comprehensive resources for the classroom. Our media unit conveys global LGBTI plus research in an accessible way. Our business unit has welcoming workplaces, a toolkit, continuous dialogue with senior leadership. And we have our research unit, which presents academic conferences and writes academic papers as well. So because today is our practical resource day of the conference, I want to give you a free practical resources for all you teachers and educators out there called our Teachers Resource Pack. Now, this is from our survey of 174 teachers in 12 countries that talked about their barriers and what helped them address these topics. And so we created this awesome resource with terminology, lesson plans, library books, 100+ library books sorted by developmental level, social justice calendar, case studies, all of these things you can download right on our website. You can scan the QR code in the top right corner. I'll also post the link right after I'm done talking. If you're like, this is incredible, I want to get involved with this organization, here are 4 quick ways you can help. First, if you love the TRP, the Teachers Resource Pack, you can join our PLC, Professional Learning Community, a global network of teachers sharing resources and experiences. You can like and share on our public platforms. You can volunteer. We have 4 positions available. And because we're a young queer organization, the biggest thing that can really help us is donating. So going to our website in the top right corner and clicking the donate, whatever you're willing to give, we would really appreciate. And just ending with a big thank you, excited to be in this space. If you ever have anything you'd like to reach out and contact us, please do. And remember that freedom starts with you and it starts now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cody. I have to say that when I had a look at your website, I literally jumped in front of my computer. I've never seen such a comprehensive listing, and I really love the way it's laid out. It's really, really clear. And then you can see resources from 0 to 3. And then, you know, it's by age group. So if you're teaching an age group or if you're a parent, you can really see very clearly, go to where you want to go. It's just so good. So we haven't got any questions from the delegates just yet, but I've got a whole lot of questions for you. You said you're in Nigeria. I mean, how can you work in a country where we are being criminalized? I mean, what kind of work is happening in Nigeria right now? Are people safe to do LGBT inclusion in schools?
We've had to advocate, as probably many of you know, in different ways. So, but the something I can speak of Nigeria is that there's a huge social movement and protest on the streets happening right now. And that extends to social media, which like Twitter just got banned this week because of all that advocacy online. And so that's how a lot of the
Twitter got banned in Nigeria this week.
Yeah. So that's how we've been negotiating and trying to find our channel, right? Our way into that work on social media.
Yeah, we've got, do you know David Nana Ikbo?
No.
He's from Nigeria. He's featured in the International Perspective panel later on today, and he's advocating in Nigeria, but he's using queer narrative to teach human rights law in university. So that's how he's getting us into the, do you know what I mean? But he's putting his life at risk. He's gone around Nigeria and collected loads of stories, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about him. So what can people do when they are, because we often get that question, you know, I'm illegal in my country, what can I do? What would be your top 3 tips?
Ooh, first, find your people. Maybe it's inside the country, in your community, or outside the country. Find your people, find out how you can advocate in the best way to make sure you stay safe. And maybe just everyone's trying to be as intersectional as possible across social movements, right? Climate justice, Black Lives Matter movement, LGBTI+, they're all interlinked in that way. So find out that shared ideology, that shared drive forward.
That's really good. That's really good. I always say use a VPN if you're communicating,
Or
and make
VPN.
sure, make sure you stay safe. We've got a question from Norina Shopland. So Norina is an LGBTQ+ historian expert. I mean, her knowledge is phenomenal. And a book, I think, has come out, or is just about to come out, and it's called Women Who Dress in Men's Clothing, From Cross-Dressing to Empowerment. And she's specializing in LGBTQ history. And she often says all of the vocabulary that we use is from the 20th century. So how do you find existence of ourselves? Anyway, you've got plenty of opportunities to hear Norina, because she's on a panel with the Museum of London today, and the London Metropolitan Archive, Leeds Gallery. We've got an entire. So her question is there coverage of LGBT+ history in the resource pack? And if not, she can help you out with some resources.
I would say we touched on it a little bit, but I would love to have conversations or resource. That's the point, is it's community center, right? So we can have dialogue. I would love that.
Yeah, so I'll do any introduction. There's going to be loads of networking happening. How did you start? I mean, how did you create from Thailand a global center? Like, how did it come about? How long have you been in existence?
We only got registered 1 year ago. And with all of the shutdown, the coronavirus, the Trump, like with United States, it's registered in Washington, D.C. So it was a process to get registered, but it was just really before that, starting conversations, workshopping. Does this sound right? Does this fully represent everyone in the community? How can we think of all these different perspectives? So that's, I think, of like intersectionality is like the foundation of success in the org, like those values.
And how did you find all these people in all these countries?
I don't know. I think just making friends and talking. Maybe it's like my personality is like, let's talk about LGBTI rights when we're at dinner and coffee and this. And, you know, I think it's just being passionate and continuing to do, right? All of us in the same space. And spaces like these generate networks. You meet people, you share ideas, and then you keep going.
Yeah, we've got over 1,000 people registered over the 3 days, and it's just the beginning, because what I often found is that it has like a little bit of a domino effect. So somebody comes and then they go, oh, I went to this conference and this is what happens, and this is where you get the link and all that kind of stuff. And it slowly, it's like organically grows. And I always find that word of mouth is really, really the best. So which countries are you currently covering at the moment?
We have people in United States, Mexico, Brazil, Germany, Ireland. I'm so nervous to forget one. Thailand, China. See, I said it and I knew it happened, but it's 10 total. I know it's 10 total. Nigeria, there's one more I'm missing.
That's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I think what's happening now is the pandemic, despite being horrible, I think that the positive thing about the pandemic is like it's brought people together that would have never met each other. Like there's no way in a million years I would have met you if I hadn't organized this. And Clubhouse has been instrumental in connecting me with people that I would never, that's how I met Enbid And do you know what I mean? And I think we're just going to go from strength to strength. What do you see the future of our community within the education sector to be? Are you hopeful? Are you worried?
I think to be blunt, we need to smash through the traditional conceptualizations of power. And so if the people designing the curriculum are like creating the policies, don't understand, like, got to get in the room, but also like educate those that are creating and maybe aren't part of the LGBTI plus community and be allies. So we have to break that traditional power hold in order to make sure it's inclusive in the traditional as well as non-traditional and non-formal spaces. That's what I see. I'm hopeful because you look at these youth these days, youth are like leading the cause, leading the marches. And I think that's the future, that the youth are on the ball. So excited.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe in, like, we're going to change the world together, we're stronger. And I really love the fact that your center is super intersectional and accepting of all sexual orientation, gender identities and expressions. I personally believe that we are all on a spectrum, from the whitest to the darkest, from the queerest to the straightest, from our body size, our abilities or disabilities, our gender identities and expression. And then the sooner people wake up to the fact that we are on this spectrum, and you don't have to agree, but you have to accept that we are here, we have always been here, and we will continue to be here. Yes, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think even like past safety and acceptance, getting to freedom, right? Like a free space for all people. Trying to create that in like an organization and also the world, right? Like getting to that, like all people deserve to be free. It's these every century we're having these conversations about the same basic idea.
Have you got like an anti-bullying section? Because I don't know whether you're aware, but in the UK, the government last year literally they cut anti-homophobic bullying from schools. So there used to be a pot of money available for people to bring in external speakers and do activities, and it was cut. So have you got any anti-bullying resources that people can access on your website? Because bullying, yesterday we heard from Martin, who's at ILGA, and he was giving us some really stark statistics about, you know, cyberbullying and all that kind of bullying that's happening. And it actually, trigger warning, leads to kids taking their lives, literally, you know, and it breaks my heart. And that's what motivates me to do the work that I do, because I know that we save lives, like literally, I know that for a fact we do. So have you got any either resources or like top tips?
There is, in the school support section of the Teacher's Resource Pack, there's how to create an anti-bullying policy at your school, if you're a teacher, educator, administrator. So there's that practical thing. There's also the United States Department of Education was having Title IX hearings this week. So they're based off Joe Biden's executive orders, trying to create more inclusive schools. And they're open to that after the last 4 years. So we submitted all these recommendations to them so that hopefully we can get into schools and teach that as well. So it's addressing like really at the school level, but also the systemic level. We're trying to advocate based off of these research, of this stark research.
So,
right?
so you're campaigning as well as creating all of these resources. I mean, when do you sleep?
I have a coffee next to me. No. Because it's like, I think it's a responsibility. These teachers gave their time to do a survey, and then we created practical tips, free practical tips for them. And then we use it for impact, that it needs to change on a systemic level as well. I see it as like, no, like teachers have so little time. Thank you and we'll use it to the maximum impact.
Absolutely. Data is really, really important. Dr. Alice Enyon-Waller said that bullying happens in higher education too, and in academia, sadly. Yeah, I'm from a further education background and it happens. But I think as an adult, if you get discriminated, it's not called bullying, it's called hate crime in the UK. And you are protected by the Equality Act 2010. So you can actually take legal action. But when it's a hate crime that happens in school, it's called bullying. And I think maybe we need to start looking at the language, because hate speech is hate speech.
Yeah, and I think also in families, bullying happens a lot with parents and families as well, and especially in COVID, where a lot of people have to stay home. And I don't know if the evidence is there yet about the increased bullying and abuse that happens at home, but I think that's something we have to address as well.
Were you here yesterday when Emma Fay shared the results of her? So Emma from justlikeus.org, it was hot off the press. The report is going to be published on Tuesday, and yesterday we had literally a preview of the research finding, and their organization surveyed 3,000 young LGBTQ+ people, and the statistics are heartbreaking.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see that.
And then we've got Ibtisam Ahmed, who's our next keynote actually, who's also saying that the LGBT Foundation COVID survey shows an increase in queer individuals feeling unsafe at home. Thank you, Ibtisam. Yeah, so we look forward to hearing you in just 5 minutes. I just want to ask our audience, we've got a lot more people who have joined us now, so welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is this will be edited. This is being recorded, so if you've missed it, you'll be able to catch up. We're creating a Pride in Education channel on YouTube, and all of the webinars are going to be accessible by the summer. I mean, it's just me, myself, and I. How many people have you got in your organization, by the way, Cody?
Now we have, inclusive of our board and our operations, I think it's 22, 23 volunteers.
That's why you've done what you've done. Do you know what I mean?
Just this year, we shot it from like 5 to like 23. It's really been incredible. Yeah, but you're right. And happy to help in any way. Please, let's feel free to continue the conversation.
I've already had a couple of people who've offered to help me with the October conference, because I run this twice a year. So at the end of the academic year and the beginning of the academic year. And so that's the 3rd time I'm doing it. And every time we do a survey and we gather people's feedback and say, what would you like for the next conference? So based on the last 2 conferences, they wanted practical workshop on how to do it. That's why there's so many workshops. We've got STEM, we've got history, we've got ELT, so that we get teachers together, and I call them knowledge sharing, because I don't really like the fact, you know, it's not like we're all experts. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a Paolo Freire fan, and when I taught TESOL, I used, you know, a lot. That's what my pedagogy was based on. So it's very much in that kind of vein. Yes. Has anyone got any questions for Cody? Please feel free. And thank you very much, Ibtisam, for sharing. You've shared it to just the panelists, so I'm going to share your link to everyone. Thank you. Okay, so Cody, I want to thank you very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep up the good work. All of the delegates will actually be emailed a link to your center. If anyone is able to donate and support your work, very welcome. If I'm in a country which is not listed on your Queer Global Center, how can I, if I'm like, I don't know, in Egypt, and have you got Egypt?
Yeah, feel free to reach
out. How does one set up in their country and join? What's the process?
So feel free, right now we're working as individual people, not as like, you know, in places. So people are working virtually from home. So feel free to email us and contact us and start the conversation. And then we can dialogue about the best strategies to do that wherever you are. That's the freedom of the internet in this time.
So if I'm in Egypt and I want to join your group, do I need to register, or what's the process?
No, I think you just need to go on our website and click the volunteer link or the contact link and send us an email, and that's it. And then we can start conversations.
Brilliant. Thank you. Linda Riley is thanking you personally, Cody. She said she really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. So let's bring our next, would you like to stay, or do you want to be promoted to delegate?
Would you mind if I go into the audience and just say a quick thank you and Sawadee Khop, everyone? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Alice and Ibtisam. Would you like to start your video, please? Thank you very, very much.
Hello, I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes, so welcome and thank you so much for joining us this morning in the UK. Before we start, I'm just going to relaunch because we've had so many more people joining us now. So I'm really sorry if you've already completed the poll, but because we've got double the people than we had at the beginning, it'll be really interesting to see how many people are from where. And if you're from Asia, I think we've got Australasia. So I included Asia and Australia, New Zealand, etc. under one tab. So I apologize. So thank you very much for completing the very, very short poll. Let us know where you are watching us from. Tell us a little bit about your background. Are you in the education sector or a librarian or a researcher? And are you part of the LGBTIQ plus community? Because we can't see you, so it's really important for us to gauge who's in the audience. So just going to take a couple of minutes, wait for people to respond, and then Ibtisam, I'll introduce you. Alice, I'll introduce you. Ibtisam, you can go for your keynote, and then Alice. And let me just double check the program, because we've got you two as a keynote. And then after a very, very short comfort break, we have the Museum and Archives panel. Questioner said, you know, I think you mean, do not. Yes, thank you, Derek. There is a typo. I'll amend it. So we've got 69 people who've responded. I'll just give you one more minute to respond if you wish. But it looks like it's mostly people in the UK working in the education sector from the LGBTIQ+. So let me just share the results with you. So you stated that you are from the UK, mostly 86%. Well, we've got someone from Middle East and North Africa, Ahlan, wa sahlan. We've got mostly people who are educators, 55%, or other education professional, 21%, and 79% of you stated being part of the LGBTIQ community. Thank you. That's really useful because we can't see you. So thank you very, very much. Ibtisam, welcome. And thank you very much. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. I must actually start with a very brief apology. My work is keeping me away from attending the entirety of the conference, but I'm very glad to know that a lot of this is being recorded. So I'm looking forward to making post-conference connections rather than during conference connections. I will drop my email address into the chat after I've finished, just in case anyone wants to get in touch with me. But I should start with that. Hello, I'm Ibtisam. My pronouns are he and him. I should actually correct that. It usually pops up for me. I will make sure that is there.
I can do it for you, Ibtisam.
Okay. What I'm a PhD student at the University of Nottingham in the UK. I'm currently completing my thesis on decolonization and utopias, but I've also started as the policy and research manager at LGBT Foundation, which is a national charity here in England and Wales. And that is a role I will be going into full-time once I've completed my thesis. I'm currently balancing two very different approaches to LGBT education. What my talk today is, which is about reclaiming queer histories, is it's very much a reflection on some of my personal experiences as someone who is queer myself, and as someone who has worked on queer histories, and also on broader histories that engage with queerness, but isn't specifically directed to it. And what I'm hoping comes out of this is points that will resonate with other educators on this, points that will potentially lead to new conversations. I'm very much echoing what Leila said earlier about it's about knowledge exchange and knowledge growth. I am in no way pretending that anything I'm saying today is original, but it is perhaps worth repeating. My journey into LGBTQIA+ education actually started on a very personal level. As I mentioned, I'm queer, and I'm from Bangladesh, which is a country that continues to criminalize same-gender attraction. So growing up, I was very deeply closeted. I had no form of access to any type of awareness or education about what it meant to be queer, and there was certainly no acknowledgement of queer histories within Bangladesh. And it was only when I moved to the UK to do my undergraduate education in history and politics that I was able to gain a level of understanding of what queerness meant in an academic setting. But it was also a very complex space to learn that, because historically the UK is the reason why it is illegal in Bangladesh in the first place. British colonialism is what led to the criminalization of same-gender attraction in this is now Bangladesh. It was then part of British India. And in fact, of the countries that continue to criminalize same-gender attraction, and of the countries indeed that continue to have some form of LGBTQIA+ phobic laws on their books, 35 of them share a history of colonialism, of British colonialism specifically, that created that structure. So it's an interesting space, being someone who is discovering myself on a personal level, but also on an academic level in the country that made it illegal in the first place. It's very, very tricky navigation, I may say so. But the reason I say that, and the reason I link it so personally, is because queer histories are complex and they are messy. And part of that, of course, is also the fact that we don't really have terminology and labels that apply across histories and across regions. One of the reasons I say queer instead of LGBTQIA+ is because I feel that that is a more authentic translation of my South Asian identity. And I think that is something that is very important to acknowledge and empower. But what it also means as a queer historian is that I'm reading into absences. I'm not necessarily able to dig up long lost sources that have been censored and kept under, things like the Official Secrets Act. I am literally dealing with imposed absences in the narrative. A lot of documents have been lost, a lot of documents have been intentionally destroyed, a lot of individuals were unable to share their experiences, and a lot of individuals are implied to be heterosexual because for them their sexuality, their gender identity as well, cisgender and heterosexual, because for many historically our queer identities were just part and parcel of who we were. And the reason why this is a problem is because it creates a default narrative of what is quote unquote normal. So my work is as much about disruption as it is about actually making claims that are solid. I'm in no way pretending that everyone's queer until proven otherwise, but it's trying to create an atmosphere where we're open to conversation and open to discussions and challenges. And as someone remembering what it was like growing up deeply closeted in a South Asian country, that's a very empowering point to take, because that ability to question is still lacking. And it would be very unfair of me to say that that is a kind of global North, global South phenomenon. If we look at the current climate around transphobia in the UK, a large part of that is due to the extremely rigid biological essentialism that we see from transphobic parts of society. So it's very important that we are constantly open to challenge and constantly aware of nuance. And that is really what I mean by reclaiming queer histories. It's not about some grand idea of finding very definitive labels. It's disruption. And I think that's very important.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There's so many questions that were going in my head, going boom, 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 while you were speaking, and I don't think we'll have the time. We got a question from Dr. Alice Enyon Waller. I hope I'm saying your name now correctly. How do you define this default narrative in inverted comma? How have you defined it? Is it socially constructed? Is it specific to certain cultural concepts in narratives?
It's very interesting to read that question, and I do thank you for that, because I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that most narratives, if not all narratives, are socially constructed. So I will start off there. But what is interesting is that, again, I remember kind of the narrative I grew up with in South Asia, and again, I see the narrative of that in the UK. And although the cultural contexts are very, very different, there's still a common thread which you can certainly attribute to the global legacies of colonialism, but also the global legacies of aspiring towards the West, and kind of the global trend. I mean, I grew up with an English education. I studied the GCSE, even though I was in a country that is not in, you know, remotely connected geographically to the UK anymore. So I think it's what we need to be very aware of is that aspiration towards the West is something that underpins a lot of these conversations and a lot of these narratives. And I think that is part and parcel of what I think is a problem. I don't think aspiring towards any one space is particularly healthy, nor does it allow for a true expression of self. So yes, with the default narrative, I think the default narrative is one, I would say from my experiences of studying colonial history in particular, it is very much this single-minded narrative of colonizers on the one hand and one very specific type of anti-colonialism on the other. I think anti-colonialism narratives often tend to be quite queerphobic as well. But the reality is there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of disparity, there's a lot of disagreements. And it's again that space of disruption that I really want to try and inhabit in all of my work.
Thank you. I got a question for you, actually. I mean, my God, this is, I feel like I've had 5 million seeds planted in my head and they're all growing at the same time. Or
thrilled to hear that.
As my computer would say, too many tabs open. You know, it's just like pum, 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 because there's so many different ways you can look at that. My question to you, Ibtisam, is do we need to rewrite history or do we need to research it to find the evidence that was hidden, or both?
Well, what's interesting about what you say is I think history has already been rewritten. I think the reality is, and you see that in every way, in every place you go. I mean, if you look at, to use a very, very publicly available example in the UK, if you go to the British Museum, which is a free space, there is almost an implication that every artifact there has been donated very generously and is here for the grand education of the masses. And that one completely erases how these artifacts were achieved and the power dynamics therein. And two, who's the public? It's people who have the ability to access London, right? It's not even everyone in the UK. So I think what we're seeing is that history has already been written in a very specific way. And we see that in the resources for history as well. So my argument is that we're not rewriting history, we are being honest about it. And part of that honesty is even sometimes putting our hands up and saying, we don't know, and that's okay. We don't need to be the arbitrary experts on everything. It's perfectly fine to acknowledge that there are these gaps in the narrative, and we need to be comfortable with sitting with that silence and trying to see what may have been left out.
Thank you very much. I'd be really interested to see what the panel on archive and museum has to say about that. I mean, I'm really, really, really thrilled with today's program. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it's phenomenal. And history is a really big part of today's program, where we've got knowledge sharing with a history teacher, and then museum and archives. And the second big theme for today is whole organizational approach. Ibtisam, I just want to thank you so very much for waking up at the crack of dawn on a Saturday morning when the weather is so nice, and dedicated your time. You said you wanted to pop in your email address.
Yes, I'm doing that
or your contact.
right now.
Yeah.
So again, I do have to apologize. We are, as I mentioned, there's a certain climate of transphobia in the UK right now that we are professionally grappling with. So I'm afraid it is not a weekend for me. I will have to go back to work, but I'm very, very grateful for this. I'm also very selfishly grateful that it's being recorded. And I look forward to catching up with everything afterwards. And of course, if anyone would like to continue conversations on anything I've raised, I've dropped my email in the chat. Please do feel free to reach out. I really
Thank you, Ibtisam. Would you like to stay on the panel, or would you like to become a delegate?
If you could make me a delegate, and as I said, I might have to pop in and out, but
yes. So yeah, the program is popcorn style. So if you would like to come in and out at any time, just click on the link of whatever it is that you want to watch, and there you go. Boom shakalaka boom boom. Dr. Alice, is it Enyenwola? How do you say your name?
Yes, Enyenwola.
Enyenwola. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming to the conference today. Would you like to introduce yourself? And I think your talk is around creating a model which is intersectional for higher education, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thanks. Thanks, Layla.
Lila.
Lila, sorry. Right, so I'm Alice Enyenwola, and I'm an associate professor of midwifery and reproductive health at Swansea University, and I'm also an LGBT plus lead. I was the co-chair of the staff network for 5 years and did a lot of activism there, and I teach across health and medicine and nursing and midwifery programs. And I research in a whole range of areas, including narratives and including, well, a lot of things, but very particularly in equalities. So I've done a lot of equalities work. So I've come here today to talk to you about the work that I've done in Swansea University, which is looking at the Inclusivity Toolkit. So what I've done in Swansea University is I've used an LGBT plus model that was created by Ward and Gale in 2016 as a foundation for an Inclusivity Toolkit for intersectional equality in the teaching practice in the university. So what this means is that we have a resource, a central resource, that allows us to immediately educate, support, and guide staff to improve educational inclusivity. So I'm going to try and share my screen to show you what it looks like. So I'm hoping you can see this. Okay, so there you go. I'm really hoping now you can see that. So what I created was an interactive.
Sorry, Alice, can you make it slightly? We can only see half. So I can see the curriculum. Yeah, no.
I'll scroll it down now. It is pretty big. I'll just reduce the size slightly.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry.
Can you see that okay?
Yeah, do you want to scroll up from the beginning?
No, it's just the title. It's fine. So what this is a sway, and it's an interactive toolkit. So I engaged in a lot of consultation with a range of people with minoritized characteristics. I carried out a lot of research, and what I tried to create was the beginning of our ability to change everything in the university when it comes to teaching and learning. Because what I learned from the, particularly from the research by Ward and Gale in Birmingham, who looked at LGBT plus inclusivity, was that if people see themselves represented in the teaching materials that they have, and if people feel valued in their educational space, then they're more likely to turn up, to stay and to succeed. And for us in a university, that means we are doing our job. We're doing it well. So what you can see there is a picture of our Great Hall lit up in rainbow colors for one of our LGBT activities. I created the toolkit based on two research models, the Ward and Gale model, and also a feminist model of leveling the playing field, of reducing the power inequalities. And what I created was something that all staff can get on board with. So this is a way of people self-assessing their progress towards providing a fully inclusive curriculum, inclusive in terms of how we teach and inclusive in terms of what we teach. And this toolkit allows people to engage at whatever level they like. So there's 6 domains of activity and 3 levels, and you can engage in one level and one domain or all of them, and you can over time develop your equality, diversity and inclusion knowledge and practice in education. So this is how it works. I'll stop sharing after I show you this stack. So you self-assess your level of inclusivity, your own practice or your module or your team, and then you find information and resources that guide you towards understanding what to do, and a quiz to fill in to self-assess your work or approach. Then you get your results, and that allows you to understand where you're at and what you need to do to improve your practice. So it's kind of an interactive educational activity, really, but it's about self-development, and it can feed in not only to improving things in your practice, but also into your PDR, so that you can use it as evidence of professional development as well. And then, so I'll scroll down to show you what it looks like in practicality, because it's huge. I mean, it really is huge.
Alice, we've got blind people registered on the conference. If you could be kind enough to describe absolutely everything that is being shared, please. Thank you.
No problem. So what we've got is a lot of text that discusses the domains of inclusive pedagogy. So on this page, I've talked about Webb et al.'s 6 domains of inclusive pedagogy, and these are our 6 domains that we look at each of the levels. So these include reformation of the relationship between professor and student, empowerment, building community, privileging the individual voice, respecting personal experience in its diversity, and challenging traditional views of theory and instruction. So we believe that each of these principles contributes to the creation of this collaborative learning experience. So we adapted this to create our own multi-dimensional approach to ensuring a comprehensive approach to inclusive curricula. I'm going to scroll down again further and just show you what this looks like. So we have a range of resources, and then we have our domains. So what you can see is here we have a table with the 6 domains I just mentioned on the top and the 3 levels of engagement on the side. And on the side, you see increasing awareness, which is level 1. That's starting to think about inclusivity. Additive approaches, which is level 2, and then transformative practice. So for each of those levels, we focus on
I think the internet must have been frozen.
to look at one thing at a time, but the idea is for you to use effectively and show you what the questionnaires are. So embedded in it, you have
I'm really sorry. I think we lost Dr. Alice. So I'd like to apologize to our delegates. It must have been something to do with her internet connection. There she's back, fantastic. Welcome back. Alice? No? I'm not sure what's going on. I'm seeing myself twice. Alice, welcome back. I apologize to everyone and thank you for your patience. Alice, we lost you. I think it must have been something to do with the internet. Am I right?
Yes, sorry about that. I disappeared. I'm back now. So yeah, I didn't have much else to say about it other than that it is live. We are using it. And while we're using the toolkit, we're gathering information and resources from people. And it allows us to identify what other resources they need and what other information they need or what other education they need. So we already have staff training on gender inclusivity that is part of our staff training that I lead. And this allows us to develop other resources for staff and really take down, to really focus on what our staff need to create inclusivity. It's led to a lot of workshops. I've worked with different disciplines and programs in order to look at their particular needs, and it really has sparked debate within the university. So it's quite a useful, it's a useful toolkit, but it has to be a living document. It changes all the time based on, that's why it's a sway, so I can change it constantly so that people can interact with it. And it's full of resources, links to other resources in the university, links to other resources outside the university, so that people can just keep growing their knowledge. I'll shut up.
Thank you. So where can we find it and how did it come about, please?
So what it came about after I attended the first LGBT plus inclusivity in higher education conference in 2016, and then we hosted the second of those conferences here in Swansea University in 2017. And it was the discussion with all the different panelists and the different presenters and the realization of how important it was that people had practical resources that made me think, I'm going to do this. So I spoke to one of our Pro-Vice Chancellors for Education, who's also LGBT plus role model, Professor Martin Stringer, and said I wanted to do this, and he said, go ahead. So I just went ahead and did it, and worked with, as I said, consulted with a range of people and tried to create something that I can grow. It's limited because it's limited by my perspective. Obviously, I'm coming from a certain perspective and I'm learning every day. Every day I'm learning something new about intersectionality, but it addresses things that have been raised specifically by people from people with specific characteristics, such as the disabled students representative, for example, and people from the trans and transgender and non-binary communities, and people from different ethnic and religious communities, all of whom have given me input and feedback. So it's a real thing.
Thank you.
That's where it came from.
Howard would like to have your email address. I know that we've got your Twitter handle on the program, so that's one way to contact you. And then Nick Jones says, I want to know how I can get this resource as I couldn't find it online. I deliver SOGI trainings, so would recommend it to schools I work with. So yeah, a few people have actually wanted to know where they can access it, Alice.
I need to create a version that is accessible to everybody, that's all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it's always good. I like toolkits and I like systems, and I think it's always good to have a model which is like a step-by-step and enables you to take. And I love the fact that you've actually allowed it to grow organically based on what's going on. I think it's really, really good. Thank you so very, very much.